Hello, friends. We are interested in the geography of our views, so please like and write in the comments from which city are you watching us, and were there loud stories of betrayal in your city? Perhaps the next story about betrayal will be from your city. And we start. I never thought it would end like this. James standing in the kitchen with this expression on his face where his jaw clenches, as if he is holding back a scream, and his eyes darken, as if all the light has been sucked out of them. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of promising myself that I would be the wife he deserves, and here we are. He knows. I don't know how he knew, but he knows. And this is no longer just suspicion. It is confidence, sharp as a knife, cutting the air between us. Lauren, he says quietly, his voice shaking as if he's trying to hold it back. Say it's not true. I'm standing at the sink, my hands wet from washing dishes that I don't care about right now. The sponge slips from your fingers and falls into the soapy water with a soft plop. I could lie. I've been lying for months, haven't I? Little half-truths, excuses about late shifts at work, a phone that I turned face down so he wouldn't see the flashing messages. But looking at him now, his broad shoulders slumped, his brown hair disheveled from running his hands through it too often, I know it's game over. What's not true? I ask, buying time. My voice is thinner than I would like. Don't, he barks, taking a step closer. Between us is the kitchen island, that stupid piece of granite we picked out together at Home Depot 3 years ago, back when we were still us. Don't play dumb, Lauren. I saw the messages. On your laptop. You haven't logged out of your account. Everything breaks down inside me. Laptop. I looked after my phone so carefully, deleting messages, keeping it under a password, but my laptop, I must have left it open yesterday after Mark and I were texting. Lord, how could I be so careless? I'm trying to remember what James might have seen. Was it, "I miss you" from Mark? Or worse, that photo he sent last week of us laughing in that seedy bar on 5th Street, his arm around me like it was natural. James, I begin, but he interrupts. Mark, he says, and the name sounds like a blow. My best friend, Lauren. 7 years of marriage, and you're hanging out with Mark? I shudder. He had never spoken to me like that before, rudely, harshly, as if he was spitting out words to hurt me. Maybe I deserve it. No, I exactly deserved it. But it still hurts when everything is laid out like this, without embellishment. I open my mouth to say something, anything, but my throat is dry, and I can only stare at the floor, at the scratches on the tiles we've been meaning to replace for a long time. How long? He asks more quietly, as if he is afraid of the answer. I swallow. A few months, I whisper. It's true, or almost true. It all started 5 months ago, that night at Mark's house when James was away for work. A bottle of wine, a stupid argument about nothing, and then Mark's hand touched mine. I should have pulled away. I didn't pull away. Jesus Christ, James mutters, turning away. He grabs the edge of the tabletop, his knuckles turning white. My best friend. The one who was my best man at the wedding. Do you remember, Lauren? He made a toast about how lucky I am to have you. The memory hits home. Mark in a rented tuxedo, raising his glass with a grin, saying that James won the lottery by marrying me. I then blushed, laughed, and squeezed James' hand under the table. At that time, I believed in it too. 7 years ago, I was 26, just finished my master's degree, and was crazy about this calm, reliable guy who made me feel safe. We built a life, this house in the suburbs, a dog named Scout, plans for children someday. Where did it all go wrong? I didn't want it to happen like this, I say, and even to me it sounds pathetic. James laughs harshly, bitterly. Oh, that fixes everything. You don't want to sleep with him. What? She tripped and fell into his bed. Stop it, I snap, finding my voice. Don't you dare pretend that everything is so simple. This isn't. This isn't just a fling. He turns to me, eyes wide. Not an affair? What then? What? Did you fall in love with him? I freeze. Have I fallen in love? Don't know. Mark is not like James. He is bright, noisy, someone who makes you feel alive. James is solid, reliable, the one who fixes the leaky faucet and remembers what kind of coffee I like. Mark is the one who makes me dance in the middle of a crowded bar, who texts me at 2 in the morning just to tell me he's thinking about me. I was drowning in this feeling, in this impulse, but love, I don't know what to call it. I don't know, I say finally, my voice breaking. I don't know what it is, James. I'm confused. I'm confused, he repeats, as if he's tasting the word. You got confused with my best friend behind me. Is this what you're telling me now? Sorry, I say, and I really mean it. Tears sting my eyes, but I blink them away. I have no right to cry, not after I destroyed everything myself. I'm sorry won't fix anything, he says, shaking his head. 7 years, Lauren. I gave you everything I had. Was that not enough? It's not about you, I say, walking around the island to approach him. He recoils as if I'm contagious, and that stops me in my tracks. It's not because you weren't enough. It's me. I screwed up. Yes, I screwed up, he says, his voice breaking. And Mark, God, I trusted him. We've been friends since college. How could he do this? I don't have an answer. Mark's betrayal hurts James more, I know it. They shared beer, went on trips together, talked about life at night. I was just a wife, the one who followed. And now I have turned this friendship into ruins. What now? I ask, barely audible. James looks at me, and for a second I see the man I married, the one who held me after a bad day, laughed at my terrible cooking attempts. And then it disappears, replaced by something cold. I don't know, he says, but I can't look at you now. Leave. Leave. The heart shrinks. James, this is our home. Just leave, he says, turning away again. Live with your sister or wherever. I need time. I stand as if rooted to the floor until he leaves the kitchen, his steps echoing heavily on the stairs. The house seems too quiet without him, as if it's holding its breath. I broke us 7 years of promises broken in one night, and when I take the keys and go to the door, I can't help but feel like there's no turning back. 3 days have passed since I left home, 3 days that I spent with my sister, sleeping on her sagging sofa and trying not to think about what I had done. 3 days of silence from James, no calls, no messages, only emptiness that weighs more heavily than his words that night. I knew he wouldn't forgive, but I still clung to the tiny hope that we could talk, that I could explain. Stupid, of course. James is not one to forgive betrayal, and yet here I am, standing at the threshold of our house, the keys shaking in my hand, and my heart pounding as if it wanted to burst out of my chest. I open the door. It's quiet inside, except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. The smell is familiar coffee and that light aroma of dog hair from Scout, which seems to be somewhere in another room. I call him quietly, Scout? But he doesn't run, doesn't wag his tail as usual. Strange. He's usually the first one to greet me at the door. James? The voice sounds uncertain, echoing off the walls. I throw my coat on the hanger and go into the living room. There he is, sitting on the sofa, hands on his knees, eyes staring at the floor. In front of him stands an open bottle of whiskey, half empty, and a glass. He doesn't usually drink unless things are really bad. Apparently, this is the case now. What are you doing here? He asks without looking up. The voice is hoarse, tired, as if he had not slept for 3 days. This is my home, I say, trying to sound stronger than I feel. I wanted to talk. He finally looks at me, and I almost step back at what I see in his eyes, not just pain, but cold, hard anger. He stands up, slowly, as if every movement costs him effort, and I notice that he has not shaved. Stubble covers his chin, making him appear older than his 35 years. Speak, he grins, but there is no fun in it. About what, Lauren? About how you had sex with Mark behind my back? Or about how I now have to live with this crap in my head every second? I swallow the lump in my throat. I know I'm to blame, but we can at least try. Try what? He interrupts, raising his voice. Save this. 7 years, Lauren, 7 years, I thought we had something real. And you smashed everything to pieces. I'm filing for divorce. The word divorce hits me like a bullet. I knew it was possible, but hearing it out loud was something else entirely. My hands begin to shake, and I clench them into fists so he won't notice. James, wait, I begin, but he interrupts again. No, wait, he says, walking towards me. I've already talked to the lawyer. You won't get anything. No house, no money, not a penny. I'll leave you with what you came with, your clothes and your mark. And I will destroy him. He won't see another contract in this town again, I swear. I will make him regret that he was even born. The threat in his voice is not empty. James works in a construction company. He has connections and influence. Mark is a contractor whose business depends on people like James. If he takes this seriously, Mark will lose everything. And I will be left with nothing. 7 years of marriage, and he wants to erase me as if I never existed. You can't do this to me, I say, my voice shaking with anger. This is unfair. Unfair? He laughs, but it's more like a growl. Are you serious? You're sleeping with my best friend, and I have to be honest. Get out, Lauren. I'm collecting your things. Take them and leave. He turns and goes to the stairs, clearly going to the bedroom, where my dresses, books, pieces of my life are still lying. I stand there, paralyzed, as his words swirl in my head. Divorce. You won't get anything. I will destroy Mark. This is not just the end, this is war. And he wants me to just give up, leave empty-handed, leaving Mark to be torn to pieces. No, I can't allow this. Something breaks inside me, as if the dam holding back all the pain, fear, and rage of these months has collapsed. I don't think, I just act. As he walks up the stairs, I turn and walk into his office. The door creaks when I open it, but I don't care. I know where he keeps the gun, in his desk drawer under a stack of old bills. He bought it a couple of years ago after his neighbor's house was burglarized. Just in case, he said then. I hated this thing, but now my fingers find it without hesitation. The metal is cold, heavier than I expected. I pull it out and check it's charged. My hands are shaking, but I force myself to breathe more evenly. It's not a plan, it's not a solution, it's just a flash. I hear him fiddling around upstairs, footsteps, the sound of a suitcase that he probably opened to throw my life out there. He wants to destroy me, destroy Mark. What about me? What's left for me? I walk up the stairs, gun in hand, heart beating so loudly it drowns out everything else. He's in the bedroom, with his back to me, putting my sweaters in a suitcase, carefully, as if it matters. This infuriates me even more, this damn neatness of his, even now. James, I say, my voice ringing like a taut string. He turns around, sees me, and his eyes widen. What the? Lauren, what are you doing? Put it down. You won't leave me with nothing, I say, stepping closer. And you won't touch Mark. Are you crazy? He raises his hands as if that will stop me. Put the gun away, now. But I don't clean. I can't. There is noise in my head, rage is boiling, and I see only his face, the face of a man who wants to erase me from his life as a mistake. My fingers squeeze the handle tighter, and I hear my voice, alien, cold. You won't get everything, James. Not like that. He takes a step towards me, tries to say something, but I'm no longer listening. My finger presses the trigger, and the sound of the shot deafens me, echoing off the walls. James slumps to the floor, eyes still open, filled with shock. I'm standing there, gun in hand, and the world around me is crumbling. The shot is still ringing in my ears, loud, sharp, as if someone had hit the metal with a hammer right next to my head. I stand frozen, the gun in my hand is hot, as if alive, and James lies on the floor in front of me. His eyes are open, looking somewhere past me, into emptiness, and a dark spot is spreading on his shirt, red, too bright, too real. I don't move. I can't. It's not me. It couldn't be me. How did this happen? My hand is shaking, the gun feels heavy, foreign, as if someone else had put it in my palm, someone else had pulled the trigger. I didn't want to. Or did I? No, it was just a moment, a flash of anger, when he said that he would take everything that would destroy Mark, that he would erase me from his life. I couldn't stand it, I couldn't let him win, but kill him. Kill him. This was not my plan. I just wanted him to stop, to shut up, to give me a chance. And now he is silent. Forever. James, I whisper, my voice is hoarse, alien. He doesn't answer. Of course he doesn't answer. He's dead. I killed him. Realization hits me like a cold wind, and I drop the gun. It hits the wooden floor with a thud, and the sound jolts me out of my daze. My legs give way, and I sink next to him. My hands reach for his face, but stop halfway. I can't touch it. I can't believe it. Tears come suddenly, hot, burning, and I can't stop them. I cry, loudly, sobbing like a child, burying my face in my hands. Sorry, 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 I mutter, although I know he can't hear me. What have I done? 7 years of marriage, 7 years of life, and this is how it all ended: his blood on our bedroom floor, and I'm sitting here, a murderer. I didn't want this. It was just anger, just a moment when everything inside me exploded. I'm not a killer. I'm not like that. But he's dead, and I did it. Panic rolls in like a wave. Your heart is beating so fast that it feels like it's about to burst. What should I do? What should I do? I can't just sit here. Someone would hear the shot, the neighbors, maybe, or Scout, who was probably hiding somewhere downstairs, scared by the noise. The police will come. They'll find me here, with the gun, with his body, and it'll all be over. They'll put me in prison. I will spend the rest of my life in prison, and Mark will never know that I did this because of him, for him. No, I can't let this happen. I wipe my tears with the back of my hand, sobbing, but force myself to stand. You need to think. Something needs to be done. I can't just give up. James wanted to destroy me, but I won't let him win, even now. My gaze falls on the pistol lying on the floor, and a thought begins to form in my head, weak, chaotic, but it is there. Robbery. Yes, robbery. If it looks like a robbery, no one will think twice about me. I can leave. I can fix everything. I pull myself together, although my hands are still shaking and my breath comes in short, sharp breaths. First the gun. Prints. My prints are on it. I run downstairs to the kitchen and grab a rag from under the sink, the one that smells like lemon dish soap. I return to the bedroom, trying not to look at James. I take the pistol through a rag, carefully wipe the handle, the trigger, everything that I could touch. Then I throw it next to the body carelessly, as if the robber dropped it in a hurry. Now the room. Everything needs to look believable. I go to the chest of drawers, pull out the drawers, empty the contents onto the floor: underwear, socks, old photographs that we have been meaning to sort out for a long time. Let them think that someone was looking for valuables. My jewelry box, I open it, dump it all out on the bed, take a pair of earrings and put it in my jacket pocket to throw away later. A robber would take something, right? I run to James's office, rummage through his papers, and overturn his chair. Chaos. It must be chaos. All the time I try not to think about the fact that he lies up there. Every time my eyes accidentally catch on the stairs, tears come again, but I push them away. No time. I have to finish. In the living room, I knock over the lamp and throw away the pillows from the sofa. The window is in the backyard. I open it wide, so they think that the robber came in from there. The cold March air rushes in, and I shiver, but it helps me pull myself together. I'm almost finished. Now the evidence. My tracks. I examine myself. There is no blood on my jeans, thank God, but my hands are sticky from sweat and tears. I wash them in the bathroom thoroughly, with soap, dry them with a towel, which I then throw in the washing machine with a rag. I leave the suitcase that James started to pack open, let it look like he caught the robber by surprise. Everything must come together. The last step is an alibi. Mark. I should be with Mark. If the police start digging, he'll be able to say he had me. I pick up the phone, my fingers shaking as I type a message. We need to talk. I'm coming to you. I sent it without waiting for a response. The car keys are already in my pocket. I put on my jacket and grab my bag. Before leaving, I take one last look at the stairs. James is up there, and part of me wants to run to him, fall to my knees, beg for forgiveness. But I can't. I've already made my choice. The door slams behind me, and I get into the car. The night is cold, the stars are bright, and I drive to Mark, trying not to think about what I left behind. The road is familiar: 20 minutes to his apartment in the city center. I turn on the radio to drown out the silence, but the voice in my head still screams, "You are a murderer." No, I'm not a killer. It was a robbery. Accident. I repeat this to myself like a mantra as my fingers grip the steering wheel. When I arrive at Mark's house, he's already waiting at the door, tall, with wild blonde hair, wearing an old t-shirt that I love so much. He frowns, seeing my face. "Lauren, what's happened? Are you okay?" he asks, walking towards me. I force myself to smile, although everything inside is trembling. "No, it's not okay. James, he's filing for divorce. I needed to leave. Can I stay with you?" He nods, hugs me, and I snuggle up to him, burying my face in his chest. He smells like cigarettes and cologne, and it's calming. "Of course, stay, as much as you like," he says softly. I came straight from him. I added to cement an alibi. I just had to leave. "Everything will be fine," he whispers, stroking my hair. I nod, even though I know he's wrong. "The police will find the body. They'll see a broken window, an overturned house, a gun with no prints. They will decide that this is a robbery, that James was the victim of a random thief. Nobody will guess. I did everything right. My traces are erased. My alibi is ready. Mark will confirm that I was here if asked. I'm sure they will never know the truth. Never. But when I close my eyes, I still see him, James, lying on the floor. And I know that this picture will always be with me. 3 months passed in a blur, a strange mixture of fear, anticipation, and some kind of painful relief. Today, I stand in front of the mirror in the bedroom, the same bedroom where it all ended, and adjust the white veil that gently flows over my shoulders. The white dress is simple, unadorned, but elegant, hugging my figure and making me look like a bride, like a woman who starts all over again. Today, I'm marrying Mark, and this house, James's house, is now ours. Everything turned out the way I wanted, almost too perfect. I look at my reflection and barely recognize myself. The eyes are still the same brown, with small wrinkles at the corners, but they no longer have the softness that they had before. Now there is something hard, sharp, like glass. I have changed. 3 months ago, I stood in this room with a gun in my hands, and now I'm here, getting ready for the wedding. The carpet had been replaced dark gray, without a single stain, and the smell of blood had long since disappeared. But sometimes, in the silence, it seems to me that I can still hear the echo of that shot. "Lauren, are you ready?" Mark's voice comes from the corridor, cheerful, slightly hoarse with excitement. He appears at the door, tall, in a black suit that fits him better than I expected. His blonde hair is combed, but still sticks out a little, as always. He smiles, and I force myself to smile back. "Yes, almost," I say, turning to him. "What do I look like?" He comes up, puts his hands on my waist, looks into my eyes. "Like a woman I'm ready to die for," he says quietly, and I feel something clench inside. The irony of his words is almost funny, but I don't laugh. Instead, I kiss him short, softly to drown out the thoughts. "Then let's go," I whisper. "I don't want to be late." It's a small wedding, just a few of Mark's friends, my sister Kate, who still looks at me with slight suspicion, and a judge who will perform the ceremony in the back garden. We decided not to delay, not to organize a magnificent celebration. After everything that happened, I didn't want any extra eyes. Police closed the case into James' death after 6 weeks, a fatal robbery, they said. No suspects, no evidence. An open window, scattered things, a gun without prints, everything came together. I knew they wouldn't find the truth. I planned everything too well in that moment of panic. Mark takes my hand, and we go downstairs. Scout, our golden retriever I took in after that night, is spinning at my feet, tail wagging. He is the only witness who remains with me, but he will not speak. I stroke his head, and we go out into the garden. The June sun is shining brightly, the grass is soft underfoot, and the air smells of the flowers I planted with James. Everything seems so right, so new. The ceremony goes quickly. The judge reads out the standard words, and we exchange rings, simple gold bands that Mark picked out at the jewelry store last week. When he places the ring on my finger, I feel a slight prick, I took off my old wedding ring from James 2 months ago and hid it in a box. It's still there, in the dresser drawer, a quiet reminder. But I don't think about him now. I look at Mark, at his smile, and say, yes. He says the same thing, and we are declared husband and wife. The guests clap, Kate hugs me, whispers, "Are you sure everything is fine?" I nod, brushing off her question. She doesn't know anything, but her intuition has always been too keen. Mark laughs with his friends, opens the champagne, and soon the garden is filled with the sounds of music and conversation. I stand a little to the side, with a glass in my hand, and look at the house. My home, our home. James wanted to leave me with nothing, but now it's mine. Irony of fate. A couple of days later, we officially moved here. Mark sold his apartment in the center, and his things, boxes of books, a guitar, an old leather sofa, are now scattered throughout the rooms. We repainted the living room light beige, hung new curtains, and threw out old photos of James. I told Mark I wanted a fresh start, and he agreed. He doesn't ask about the past, doesn't delve into what happened. Sometimes I catch his glance thoughtful, a little sad, but he quickly looks away and smiles. He thinks I'm going through a divorce. He doesn't know that I'm going through a murder. "Are you happy?" he asks in the evening when the guests have left and we are sitting on the sofa with glasses of wine. Scout is dozing by the fireplace and it is getting dark outside the window. "Yes," I say, and it's almost true. I lean back on his shoulder, inhaling his scent cigarettes, leather, warmth. "And you?" "With you, always," he replies, kissing my temple. "This house, it's cool. It's strange to think that it was yours and James's, and now it's ours." I tense up, but only for a second. "It's just a house," I say quietly. "Now he is ours. The past is not important." He nods, and I know he believes me. He's not one to get bogged down in details. This is one of the reasons why I chose it. James was different. He noticed everything, analyzed everything, kept everything under control. Mark is simpler, easier. I can breathe with him. With him, I can forget. The days go by calmly. Mark is working on new projects after James' death. His business took off, as if someone from above decided that he deserved a break. I take care of the house, cook dinners, and walk with Scout. Neighbors sometimes ask about James. "It's such a shame that this happened. Are you okay?" But I smile, nod, and say that life moves on. They don't suspect it. Nobody suspects. The police don't call anymore. The last time a detective, an elderly man with tired eyes, came 2 months ago, he said that the case was closed. "No leads, Mrs. Davis. We are closing the case." I thanked him, offered him coffee, and played the role of a grieving widow. He left, and I closed the door, feeling like a stone had been lifted from my shoulders. They believed. Everything I did that night, the broken window, the overturned boxes, the erased prints, worked. I won. Sometimes at night, I wake up from nightmares. James stands in the doorway, looking at me, silent. I wake up in a cold sweat, Mark sleeping next to me, his hand on my thigh, and I lie there, looking at the ceiling until my breathing evens out. These are just dreams, I tell myself. The past will not return. I made a choice, and it was the right one. In the morning, I make coffee. Mark reads the news at the table. He laughs at some article, tells me a joke, and I smile. This is my life now, quiet, simple, with a man who loves me. James' house has become our sanctuary, the place where we build our future. I don't look back. I can't afford it. "What are you thinking about?" Mark asks, looking at me over the top of his mug. "About how good everything is," I answer, and it's true. Almost. Everything is as I wanted. He reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. "And just as I wanted," he says. "We deserve it, Lauren." I nod, drink my coffee, look out the window at the garden where we got married. The past is gone. James left. The police left. There were only us left, me, Mark, this house. New life. My life. And I won't give it to anyone. A month had passed since our wedding, and I began to think that life had finally gotten better. James' house, now Mark's and mine, became my sanctuary, a place where I could breathe without looking back. the police closed the case, Mark did not suspect anything, and I learned to drown out nightmares with a cup of herbal tea and his warm hugs. Everything was under control. At least that's what I thought. But in the last few days, something has changed, something unnoticeable, but alarming, like a shadow creeping around the edge of my vision. At first, I chalked it up to fatigue and nerves, but now I'm not sure. Something is happening, something I can't explain. It all started with the door. Last night, I woke up to a sound, a quiet but distinct creaking sound, as if someone was slowly opening the bedroom door. I lay there, listening, my heart beating a little faster than usual. Mark slept next to him, his breathing even and deep, and Scout was curled up in a ball at the foot of the bed. I turned my head, the door was ajar. Not wide, only a few centimeters, but I definitely remembered that I closed it before going to bed. We always closed the door to prevent Scout from wandering around the house at night. I stood up, bare feet touching the cold floor, and walked to the door. Behind her is the darkness of the corridor, silence, only the slight rustle of the wind outside the window. I closed it again, clicking the lock, and went back to bed. Maybe it's a draft, I told myself. An old house, maybe. But in the morning, Mark asked, "Did you get up at night?" I froze with the coffee pot in my hands. "No, what?" "The door was open when I woke up," he said, shrugging. "I thought you were going out." I forced myself to smile, although something sank inside. "I probably forgot to close it," I lied. He nodded, looked at the phone, and the conversation ended. But I knew I hadn't forgotten. I closed it. Twice. A couple of days later, my book disappeared. It was some little thing I left, an old, tattered novel that I read before going to bed on the nightstand in the living room. In the morning, she was not there. I searched the whole house, under the sofa, in the kitchen, even in the bedroom, where I definitely didn't take it. Nothing. Mark just laughed when I told him. "Maybe Scout stole it." He winked, patting the dog on the head. "He doesn't eat books," I muttered, but still checked his bed. Empty. It was strange, but not scary. I bought a new book, chalked it up to absent-mindedness, and forgot about it. But then the car keys disappeared. I always put them in a bowl on the entryway table, a habit I've developed over the years. Yesterday morning, the bowl was empty. Mark and I turned the whole house upside down and ended up finding them under a chair in the living room, where I would never have dropped them. "Did you drink too much yesterday?" he teased, grinning. "I didn't drink at all," I snapped, and he raised his hands in surrender. Keys, a book, a door, little things, but they accumulated like drops of water breaking through a stone. I started to notice that the house felt different. The silence became heavier, the corners became darker, even during the day. Scout also began to behave strangely. He would suddenly freeze in the middle of the room, staring into space, ears perked, and then whine quietly. I asked Mark if he noticed anything unusual, but he just shrugged. "Old house, Lauren. It creaks and settles. Everything is fine." But this was not normal. Last night, I saw a shadow. I was standing in the bathroom, brushing my teeth before bed, when out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement in the mirror. Something dark and vague flashed behind my shoulder. I turned around sharply, no one. Just white tiles, a towel on a hook, a closed door. I looked in the mirror again, and for a second it seemed to me that my reflection lingered, did not move with me, but remained motionless, looking straight into my eyes. I blinked and everything went back to normal. The toothbrush fell out of my hands. I swore in a whisper and went to bed without looking in the mirror again. "Are you okay?" Mark asked this morning at breakfast. "You look pale." "I just didn't get enough sleep," I lied, stirring my coffee. I didn't tell him about the shadow. He would have laughed, or, worse, started to worry. And I don't need his concern. I need everything to remain as it is, our new life, our home, our happiness. But the strangeness did not stop. Yesterday, I was cooking dinner, nothing complicated, just chicken and potatoes, and left the knife on the countertop. I turned to the stove to check the oven, and when I turned around, the knife was gone. I searched the kitchen, looked in the drawers, under the table, nothing. An hour later, I found it in the pantry, on a shelf with canned goods, where I definitely didn't put it. Mark was at work, Scout was sleeping in the living room. Who could have put it there? I stood in the closet, holding the knife, and felt a cold run down my spine. It's not me. This is not Mark. Then who? At night, I woke up again. Creak. Not the bedroom door, it was closed, but somewhere downstairs, in the living room. I sat up in bed, listening. Mark was sleeping. His hand lay on my waist, warm and heavy. The creak was repeated, then again slow, like footsteps. I stood up, put on my robe, and grabbed the phone from the nightstand. My heart was pounding, but I told myself that this was nonsense. Maybe Scout, maybe the wind. I walked down the stairs, the light from the phone screen shaking in my hand. The living room was empty, the sofa in place, the curtains motionless. But the door to the garden, the one we always lock, was open. Wide, wide open, and the cold night air flowed inside. "Mark!" I shouted, my voice trembling. He came down a minute later, disheveled, wearing only his boxers. "What's happened?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "The door. It's open," I said, pointing. He frowned, walked over, and examined the castle. "Strange. Maybe they forgot to close it." "We didn't forget," I objected, but he was already shrugging. "Well, it's closed now. Go to bed, Lauren." I didn't sleep. I lay there looking at the ceiling and thinking about the night I left the window open to make it look like a robbery. Maybe I missed something. No, the police didn't find anything. It's not related. It's just a house. Just nerves. But in the morning, I noticed another strange thing: my mug, the one with the inscription, "Best Wife," which James gave me for our anniversary, was standing on the table, although I had definitely put it away in the closet. Mark went to work, and I was left alone, looking at this mug as if it were a challenge. In the evening, I decided to check the mirror again. She stood in front of him in the bathroom, turned on the light, and stared at her reflection. Nothing. I'm just pale, with dark circles under my eyes. I leaned closer, and then it happened: a shadow, quick as a flash, flashed behind me. I turned around so quickly that I almost fell. No one. But when I looked in the mirror again, my heart stopped. He was standing behind me. James. Vague, blurry, but I recognized his face, his eyes, full of the same pain as that night. I screamed, stumbled back, and hit my back against the wall. The mirror was empty. Just me, breathing heavily, with a crazy look. "Lauren?" Mark knocked on the bathroom door. "Why are you shouting?" "I fell," I lied, opening the door. "Everything is fine." He looked at me strangely, but nodded. "Are you sure you're okay? Maybe you should rest?" "Yes, I guess," I muttered, going into the bedroom. I didn't tell him. I couldn't. He'll think I'm going crazy. Maybe that's true. But these doors, things, shadows, they are real. I feel it. There's something here in this house that doesn't want me to forget. I sit on the bed, Scout at my feet, and think about James. His body has been in the ground for a long time. The case is closed, but what if he didn't leave? What if he's still here, watching, waiting? I close my eyes, and his face is in front of me again, not in the mirror, but in my memory, that night when I pulled the trigger. I thought that the strange things in the house were just a figment of my imagination, shadows of the past that I myself created. Doors opening on their own, missing things, figures flashing in the mirror, all this can be explained. Old house, drafts, tiredness. I repeated this to myself like a spell, every morning as I poured my coffee, every night as I lay in bed next to Mark. But in recent days, something has changed. Something has gotten louder, closer, and I can no longer pretend it's just nerves. It speaks to me, and I'm afraid it's not just talking to me. It all started with a whisper. The night before last, I woke up in the dark for no reason, without a sound, just a sharp jerk from a dream into reality. Mark slept next to him, his chest rising and falling in an even rhythm, Scout snoring quietly at his feet. The silence was thick, almost palpable, but then I heard it, a faint, barely audible whisper coming from somewhere in the corner of the room. I couldn't make out the words, only a low, familiar timbre that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I froze, clutching the blanket, listening. The whisper died down, dissolved into silence, and I convinced myself that it was a dream, an echo of a nightmare that I did not remember. I didn't say anything to Mark this morning. For what? He would just laugh or, worse, start asking questions that I don't want to answer. But the next night it happened again. I woke up again, this time from the cold as if someone had opened a window, although all the frames were closed. I was lying looking at the ceiling, and suddenly I heard it the same whisper, a little louder, a little clearer. Lauren, my name sounded softly, but with some dark depth that made my heart clench. I recognized this voice. James. It was his voice, the one that I heard thousands of times in 7 years of marriage, the one that calmed me, argued with me, accused me of that last night. I sat up abruptly and turned on the lamp on the nightstand. The room was empty, only Mark stirred and muttered something in his sleep. I got up, walked around the bedroom, looked in the closet, into the hallway, nothing. Only silence and the faint creaking of the floorboards underfoot. It's nerves, I said to myself out loud, standing at the window and looking at the dark garden. Just nerves. You think too much. I returned to bed, but could not sleep. She lay there, listening to every sound, waiting for the whisper to return. He didn't come back that night, but I knew it wasn't the end. There was something here in this house, and it knew my name. In the morning, I looked like a ghost, pale, with dark circles under my eyes. Mark noticed, of course. You weren't sleeping again? He asked, spreading jam on his toast. Nightmares, I lied, sipping my coffee. It's okay. Maybe you should see a doctor. He frowned, looking at me with that gentle concern that made me feel even worse. You've been kind of tense lately. It's okay, Mark, I snapped, too sharply. He fell silent, shrugged his shoulders, and went to work. I was left alone, wandering around the house, trying to distract myself. I cleaned the kitchen, watered the flowers in the garden, stroked Scout, who looked at me with his big sad eyes, as if he felt something. But the whisper did not leave my head. It was James. I knew it, even if I didn't want to believe it. Maybe it's my conscience. Maybe everything I did that night, the gun finally caught up with me. I killed him, staged a robbery, took his house, his life, and now he's back to remind me. But I don't believe in ghosts. I don't want to believe it. During the day I held on, but the nights became a test. The whispering did not come every night, but often enough that I began to be afraid to go to bed. Sometimes it was just my name, Lauren, spoken quietly, almost affectionately. Sometimes the words were unintelligible, like the muttering of the wind, but always in his voice. I started leaving the hallway light on and checking the locks 3 times before going to bed, but it didn't help. He was here, in the walls, in the air, and I couldn't do anything about it. And then I saw Mark. This happened last night. I was making dinner pasta with sauce, nothing complicated, when I heard his voice from the living room. He returned from work an hour ago, said he was tired, and went to relax with a beer. I thought he was watching TV, but the TV was turned off. I turned off the stove, dried my hands, and went to check. He stood at the window, with his back to me, and spoke. Quietly, slowly, as if he was arguing with someone. No, that's not true, he said, shaking his head. I didn't know. I froze in the doorway. Mark, who are you talking to? He turned around, his eyes widened slightly, but immediately relaxed. What? With no one, just thinking out loud. Were you arguing with yourself? I asked, trying to keep my voice light, although everything inside was cold. Sometimes it helps, he smiled, but the smile was strained. Is everything ready? I'm hungry as a wolf. I nodded and went back to the kitchen, but I couldn't get it out of my head. He wasn't talking to himself. I saw him tilt his head as if he was listening to an answer that I did not hear. Who was he talking to? With the same one who whispers to me at night? With James? No, this is crazy. Mark doesn't know anything. He can't know. But doubt stuck in my chest like a thorn. At night, the whispering returned. I woke up at 3 o'clock. The darkness was pressing on my eyes, and he was here low, familiar, right next to my ear. You won't leave, he said, and I gasped, clutching the sheet. Mark slept without moving, and Scout whined quietly in his sleep. I turned on the light, but the whisper had already died down. I sat there, shivering, until the morning turned the sky gray. Today, I decided to talk to Mark. He was in the garage, tinkering with some shelf that he promised to fix. I stood in the doorway, watching him tighten the screws. "Mark, did you hear anything strange at night?" I asked carefully. He raised his head and wiped his forehead with his sleeve. "Strange? Like what?" "I don't know. Whisper, maybe?" I looked at him, trying to catch at least a hint. "Whisper." He laughed, but the laugh was short and sharp. "No, Lauren, you're definitely overtired. Maybe you should take a vacation." I nodded and stepped back, but his reaction did not reassure me. He was hiding something, or did it seem to me? In the evening, I found him again. He was standing in the kitchen, with his back to me and muttering. "I didn't want to. You know I didn't want to." I cleared my throat, and he turned around with a quick smile. "Oh, you're here. Is dinner coming soon?" "Yes," I said, but my voice was shaking. "Who were you talking to?" "No one," he shrugged, too casually. "Just thinking out loud." I didn't believe it. He wasn't talking to himself. I saw him nod as if he had an answer. "With whom?" "With James. This is impossible." But the whisper in the dark, his voice, his words, they were real. And now Mark. What if he hears too? What if James is here with us, and he won't leave until he takes us with him? I don't know what to do, but I know one thing: it's not nerves. It's something more, and it's coming. I thought I could live with this, with the whispers, with the shadows, with Mark talking to himself, or maybe not to himself. I thought that I could suffocate the fear, hide it under a layer of everyday life, under our dinners, walks with Scout, under the new life that I had so carefully built. But the last few nights have proven me wrong. It doesn't go away. It's getting closer. And now it's saying it to my face. It all started 3 nights ago. I woke up in the dark, as usual, with the feeling that someone was looking at me. Mark was sleeping next to him. His hand lay on the pillow. Scout was quietly snoring by the bed. The silence was heavy, almost alive, and I was already used to it, to the anticipation, to the tension before the whisper returned. But that night he was different. Not from the corner of the room, not from the corridor, but right next to my ear, low, cold, so clear that I felt the breath on my skin. "You were mistaken," he said. "James." His voice is the same one that I heard that last evening, when he looked at me with pain and anger before I pulled the trigger. I screamed, sat up in bed, and turned on the lamp. Light flooded the room, but it was empty except for Mark, who stirred and muttered, "Lauren, what the hell?" and Scout, who raised his head, looking at me with concern. I grabbed my neck, expecting to feel something cold, warmth, a trail of breath, but there was nothing. Just my skin, hot with fear, and my heart, which was pounding as if it wanted to break out. "It's a nightmare," I said, more to myself than to Mark. "Just a nightmare." He nodded, rubbed his eyes sleepily, and turned away, falling asleep again. But I knew that this was not a dream. It was him. James. His voice was too real, too close. "You were mistaken." What did he mean? Did I make a mistake when I killed him? Was she wrong when she took his house, his life, his friend? Or was I mistaken in thinking that I could escape what I had done? I sat in the dark, the lamp burned until the morning, and the words swirled in my head like a poisonous wind. In the morning, I looked terrible, pale, with bruises under my eyes that could no longer be hidden with foundation. Mark noticed, of course. "Lauren, are you serious? What's wrong with you?" he asked at breakfast, looking at me over the newspaper. "You haven't slept well for a week." "It's just stress," I lied, stirring the coffee, which had already cooled down. "I think a lot about work, about home." "Maybe you should see a psychologist," he suggested, and there was genuine concern in his voice. "Or at least some pills." "I can handle it," I snapped, too harshly. He fell silent, but I saw that he didn't believe it. I couldn't tell him. How can I explain that I hear the voice of my dead husband, whispering to me that I was mistaken? He'll think I'm crazy. Maybe that's true. But I couldn't stop hearing it. The next night, he returned the same whisper, the same coldness in the ear. "You're wrong." I didn't scream this time. I just lay there, paralyzed, as the words cut into me like a knife. In the morning, I decided that it was my fault, my conscience, my mind, which was breaking under the weight of guilt. I killed him. I have to live with this. But I didn't expect it to get worse. Last night, everything changed. I fell asleep late after 2 glasses of wine, hoping that the alcohol would drown out the fear. The dream came heavy, cloudy, and in it I felt this a touch. Cold fingers, light but persistent, slid along my arm from elbow to wrist. I turned around in my sleep, trying to get away from them, but they came back, stronger, squeezing my shoulder, then my neck. It wasn't affectionate, it was demanding, as if someone wanted to wake me up, force me to open my eyes. I muttered something, struggled with myself, until I finally pulled myself out of sleep, gasping for breath. The room was dark. The lamp was off. I didn't remember how it happened. Mark was sleeping. His breathing was even. Scout lay by the door, whining quietly. I turned on the light. With trembling hands, I reached for the phone 3 o'clock in the morning. My skin burned where I felt the touch, and I looked at my hand, expecting to see. What? Traces? There was nothing. Just skin, slightly reddened from the way I rubbed it, trying to shake off the sensation. But in the morning, I saw them. I was standing in the bathroom, combing my hair, when I noticed this in the mirror bruises. Dark, jagged marks on my left shoulder, as if from fingers squeezing too tightly. I lifted the sleeve of my nightgown, another one, on my forearm, long, as if someone had drawn his hand down. There was a faint mark on the neck, barely noticeable, but it was there. I froze, looking at my reflection, and felt a chill run up my back. I didn't do this. I couldn't do this in my sleep. This was something different. Someone else. Lauren? Mark knocked on the bathroom door. You've been there for a long time. Everything is fine? Yes, I shouted, pulling on a long-sleeved shirt so he wouldn't see. I'm already on my way. I went out, smiled, poured him coffee, but inside everything was screaming. Bruises. Touching. Whisper. It was James. I knew it, even if I didn't want to believe it. He was here in this house, and he didn't just talk, he touched me, left marks. But how? He's dead. He can't be here. Or maybe. During the day, I tried to hold on. I cleaned the kitchen, walked with Scout, even called my sister, pretending that everything was fine. But the bruises burned under my clothes, and I couldn't stop thinking about them. When Mark returned from work, I watched him. He seemed normal, joked, talked about some clients. But I remembered how he talked to himself, how he nodded to the void. Can he hear it too? Does he feel it? I decided to check. Mark, I began over dinner, trying to sound casual. Have you ever felt something strange at night? He froze with a fork in his hand and looked at me. Strange? Like what? I don't know. Touching, maybe. I watched his face, looking for at least a hint. Touching. He laughed, but the laugh was forced. Are you talking about how Scout climbs onto the bed? No, I said quietly. Something else. He shrugged, but I noticed his hand tremble as he reached for the water. No, Lauren. Nothing like that. Are you sure you're okay? I nodded, but didn't believe him. He was hiding something. Or did I see something that wasn't there? I spent the night in tension, waiting for a whisper, waiting for hands. They came again. In my dream, I felt them cold, strong, squeezing my wrists, pulling me down somewhere. I struggled and screamed inside the dream until I woke up gasping for breath. The light was off. Mark was sleeping, but my hands. I turned on the lamp and saw new bruises, fresh, red, around my wrists, as if from handcuffs. I sat looking at them and heard it again right next to my ear, quietly but clearly. You were mistaken. It was James. He's here. He touches me, leaves marks, and I don't know how to stop it. Mark is sleeping, but I look at him and think, does he know? Does he feel? Or am I alone in this nightmare that I created? Here is the chapter Mark Gets Bad in Russian, written in Lauren's first person, continuing the story. Mark begins to complain of nightmares, behaves inappropriately, strange noises drive him crazy, and he claims that he talked to James and that he is alive. The volume is about 2,000 words, with detailed descriptions, dialogues, and internal reflections, enhancing the atmosphere of chaos and horror. Let's go. I thought it was just my burden, James's whisper in my ear, cold hands in my sleep, bruises that appear for no reason. I thought I could keep this to myself, hide it from Mark, build our new life, despite the shadows that cling to me. But the last few days have shown that I am not alone in this nightmare. Something happens to Mark, and it destroys him just as much as it destroys me. Maybe even worse, and I don't know how to stop it. It all started a week ago. Mark came home from work later than usual. His eyes were red, his hair was disheveled, as if he had been rubbing it with his hands all day. He dropped his bag at the door, silently walked into the kitchen, and poured himself some whiskey, not beer, as usual, but something stronger. I noticed that his hands were shaking as he raised the glass to his lips. "Hard day?" I asked, trying to sound light, although the alarm bell was already ringing inside. "Yes," he muttered, without looking at me. "I don't want to talk about it." I nodded and didn't press. He was like that sometimes, withdrawn, gloomy, but it passed. However, the next morning he was no better. I found him in the living room, sitting on the couch in the dark, staring at the turned-off TV. Scout lay at his feet, whining softly, as if he felt something I couldn't see. "Mark?" I called, turning on the light. He shuddered and turned sharply towards me. "What?" The voice was hoarse and harsh. "You weren't sleeping?" I asked, looking at his face pale, with dark circles under his eyes, the same as mine. "Nightmares," he said, rubbing his temples. "Everything is fine. I just didn't get enough sleep." I wanted to ask what nightmares, but he had already gotten up, walked past me into the kitchen, and I heard the closet door slam. Nightmares. The word hung in the air like a warning. I had my nightmares, James, his voice, his hands, but Mark. What did he see? I didn't dare ask. Bye. But every day it got worse. Mark began to change. He, always so light and cheerful, became irritable and twitchy. Yesterday morning, I found him in the kitchen. He stood at the sink, looking out the window and muttering something. I couldn't make out the words, but his lips were moving, as if he were arguing with someone. "Mark?" I called quietly. He turned around so quickly that he dropped the mug he was holding. It broke on the tiles, and the coffee spread into a dark puddle. "Damn it, Lauren, don't sneak up like that," he barked, clutching his head. "I didn't sneak up," I said, retreating. "Did you talk to someone?" "No," he snapped too quickly, just thinking out loud. He bent down and began to collect the fragments, but I saw how his fingers were trembling. This wasn't the first time. I've already noticed how he talks to himself, nods in emptiness. But now it became more frequent and he looked worse. His skin took on a gray tint, his eyes sunken, and his movements became abrupt, like those of a man who constantly looks around. At night I heard sounds. Not a whisper that one came to me, quiet and personal, but something else. A knock, low and rhythmic, came from the living room. I woke up and Mark wasn't there. The clock showed 2 o'clock in the morning. I got up, put on my robe, and went downstairs. The lights in the living room were turned off, but the knocking continued, knock, 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 as if someone was banging their head against the wall. I turned on the lamp and saw him. Mark was standing at the window, with his back to me, and banging his fist on the windowsill. Time after time, slowly, methodically. "Mark, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. He froze and turned around. His eyes were empty, as if he wasn't quite there. "Do you hear?" he whispered. "These sounds, they don't stop." "What sounds?" I came closer, but he retreated, pressing himself against the wall. Knock. Steps. "Voices," he said, looking somewhere past me. "They're driving me crazy, Lauren." I froze. Vote? Does he hear them too? My heart began to pound, but I forced myself to speak calmly. "It's just a house, Mark. Old house. Go to bed." "This is not a house," he said, his voice breaking. "This is him." "Who?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. He looked at me, and there was something wild and crazy in his eyes. "James." The word fell between us like a stone. I opened my mouth to object, but he continued, his voice shaking but full of conviction. "I talked to him, Lauren. Last night. He was here. He's alive." I felt the floor disappear from under my feet. "Mark, this is impossible," I said, trying to sound firm. "James is dead. You know it." "No," he shook his head and stepped towards me. "I saw him. He stood there by the sofa and talked to me, said I took his life, that I betrayed him. I stepped back, my heart pounding in my throat. It was a dream, Mark, just a dream. This is not a dream, he shouted, and Scout, who was sleeping by the stairs, jumped up and barked. He's here, Lauren. I hear him every night steps, knocking, his voice. He says it's my fault. I grabbed him by the shoulders, trying to bring him to his senses. Mark, listen to me. It's not real. You're tired, you're not sleeping. You don't understand, he broke out, his eyes sparkling with tears or madness I couldn't understand. He knows. He knows everything. He collapsed on the sofa, covered his face with his hands, and I stood looking at him, not knowing what to do. He spoke to James. He saw him. This couldn't be true, but I myself heard the whispers, felt the hands, saw the bruises. What if Mark isn't going crazy? What if it's true? But James is dead. In the morning, Mark was even worse. He didn't go to work, sat in the kitchen, holding his head in his hands, and flinched at every sound, the creaking of the floorboards, Scout's barking, even the noise of the coffee maker. I tried to talk to him, but he just muttered. He's here. He's not leaving. By evening, he lost his temper. I was in the bedroom when I heard a scream, wild, full of horror. I ran downstairs and found him in the living room, standing in the middle of the room with a kitchen knife in his hand. Mark, I shouted, rushing towards him. What are you doing? He's here, he yelled, waving the knife into the void. I saw him. He wants to pick me up. Put down the knife, please, I begged, but he didn't listen. His eyes were crazy. He was spinning around as if he saw someone I couldn't see. James, leave me, he shouted, and the knife fell from his hands, clanking on the floor. He fell to his knees, gasping for breath. He's alive, Lauren, he said, you know. I froze. Did he say I know? What do I know? That I killed him. That I did this for Mark. My hands shook, and I retreated to the wall. Mark looked at me, and there was something new in his gaze, not only fear, but also suspicion. What did he mean, Lauren? He asked quietly. What do you know? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because at that moment I heard it again, a whisper, right next to my ear, cold and clear. You were mistaken. And I realized that this was not only my burden. This is our nightmare, and it's just beginning. Here is a chapter of Voices in the Head in Russian, written in Lauren's first person, continuing the story. Mark claims to be talking to James, and Lauren watches him delirious, staring into space and screaming in his sleep. The volume is about 2,000 words, with detailed descriptions, dialogues, and internal reflections, enhancing the atmosphere of madness and fear. Let's go. I always knew that the past could return, but I didn't think it would do it like this through Mark, through his eyes, his voice, his screams. I thought I could keep everything under control, hide the truth in the dark corners of this house, behind the new paint on the walls, behind our smiles. But now I see Mark falling apart, and that scares me more than the whispers in my ear or the bruises on my skin. He says he's talking to James, and I'm starting to fear that he's right. It all started after that night when he stood with a knife in the living room, screaming at nothing. I thought it was a breakdown, fatigue, nerves, nightmares that he mentioned. But since then, he has not returned to his place. The next day, he didn't go to work. He sat in the kitchen with his head in his hands and looked at the table as if there was a map there that he was trying to solve. I tried to talk to him, but he just waved me off. Mark, you need to eat, I said, placing a plate of omelet in front of him. He didn't even look up. He spoke to me, he muttered, his voice as empty as an echo. Who? I asked, although I already knew the answer. James, he said, and his fingers curled into fists. He was here, at night. I froze, the fork in my hand trembled. Mark, it was a dream, I said quietly, trying to sound convincing. James is dead. You know it. He raised his head sharply, his eyes were red and inflamed. This is not a dream, Lauren. I heard him. He stood by the bed and talked to me. He said that I betrayed him, that we both betrayed him. My heart sank. Both of us, did he say, we? I forced myself to smile, although everything inside was screaming. Mark, listen, you're tired. You need to rest. You don't believe me, he said, and there was bitterness in his voice. But I know what I heard. He's here. He got up, walked into the living room, and I heard him start muttering again quietly, indistinctly, as if he was answering someone. I stayed in the kitchen, looking at the untouched omelet, and tried to convince myself that this was just nonsense. He's not himself. He can't talk to James. James is dead. I did it. I saw him die. But his words, "We both betrayed him," cut into me like a knife. What if he knows? What if James is really here, and he talks to Mark the same way he whispers to me? By evening, he became worse. I found him in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring into space. His lips moved, but I didn't hear the words. Scout lay by the door, whining quietly, as if he was afraid to come closer. "Mark," I called, walking towards him. He didn't answer, just turned his head slightly, as if he was listening to something. Then he said, quietly but clearly, "He wants me to know." "Knew what?" I asked, sitting down next to him. "That he didn't leave," he said, and his eyes met mine. They were empty, as if someone had turned off the light inside it. He said, "You know, Lauren." "What did you do?" I felt a chill run down my back. "Mark, this is nonsense," I said, but my voice was shaking. "Nobody said anything. It's in your head." "No," he shook his head, and his voice became louder. "It's not in my head. This is him. James. I spoke to him. He's alive." I stood up and retreated to the door. "Mark, stop it. You're scaring me." "Am I scaring you?" He laughed, but the laughter was harsh, alien. "He's the one who scares me. He doesn't leave. He wants me to know." He fell silent, stared at the corner of the room, and I followed his gaze. There was nothing there, just a chair, an old blanket, the shadow of a lamp. But he looked as if he saw someone. I left, leaving him there because I didn't know what else to do. He's delusional, I told myself. He's going crazy. But the part of me, the part that heard the whispers, felt the hands, saw the bruises, began to doubt. At night, I heard his screams. I woke up to a sound, a loud, terrified scream that broke the silence. Mark sat in bed, eyes wide open, hands clutching the sheet. "He's here," he shouted, looking into the darkness. "He's here, Lauren." "Who?" I asked, turning on the light, although I already knew the answer. "James," he gasped, his chest heaving as if he was running. He stood there at the window and talked to me, said it was my fault. I looked at the window closed, the curtains motionless. "Mark, this is a dream," I said, but he grabbed my hand and squeezed me so hard that I screamed. "This is not a dream," he yelled. "I saw him. He's alive. He wants me to pay." I broke free and jumped to the wall. "Mark, calm down. There's no one." "You're lying," he said, and his voice became quieter, but there was a threat in it. "You know," he said, "you know." He fell back onto the pillow, closed his eyes, and I heard him muttering quietly, quickly, like a prayer. I didn't sleep until the morning, sat in the corner of the room, looking at him. He screamed twice more that night, each time waking up in a panic, screaming James' name, staring into space. In the morning, he was like a shadow, pale, silent, but his eyes were watching something that I did not see. During the day, I found him in the living room. He stood by the sofa, looked into the corner, and spoke. He did not mutter, but spoke as if he was answering someone. "I didn't mean to," he said, shaking his head. "You know I didn't want to. This is her." I froze in the doorway. Is this her? Was he talking about me? I coughed, and he turned around, but his gaze was unfocused, as if he was seeing right through me. "Mark, who are you talking to?" I asked, stepping closer. "With him," he said, pointing to the corner. "With James. He's here." I looked their emptiness, only the shadow of the curtains. "Mark, there's no one there," I said, but he grabbed me by the shoulders. "Are you blind?" he shouted. "He's standing there. He's looking at us. He knows what you did." I pushed him away and retreated. "Stop it. You're sick, Mark. This is not real." "This is real," he said, his voice breaking. "He's alive. He told me," said you killed him. The word "killed" hit me like a bullet. I opened my mouth to object, but the words got stuck in my throat. He looked at me, and there was something new in his eyes, not only fear, but also understanding. He knew, or thought he did. "Mark, you're delusional," I finally said, but my voice was weak. "Go to bed. I'll call the doctor." "To the doctor?" He laughed, and the laughter was crazy. "The doctor won't help. He's here. He won't leave until we pay." He collapsed on the sofa, covered his face with his hands, and I left because I couldn't stand it anymore. He's delusional. He's going crazy. But what if not? What if James was really here, talking to him, telling him the truth? I heard whispers, felt hands, saw bruises, and now Mark his screams, his gaze into the void, his words. "You killed him." He couldn't know, or could he? At night, he screamed again. I woke up from his scream, "James, no," and saw him struggling in the bed, as if someone was holding him. I turned on the light and grabbed him by the shoulders. "Mark, wake up," I shouted. He opened his eyes, gasping for breath, and looked at me. "He was here," he whispered. He said, "You're next." Here is the continuation of the story in Russian, combining the chapters "Mark is taken away" and "You are next," written in the first person by Lauren. Mark goes into psychosis, screams that James is inside him, tears his skin, and Lauren calls an ambulance, after which he is taken to a mental hospital. Lauren thinks the nightmare is over, but the doors slam again and James' voice repeats, "You're next." The volume is about 2,000 words, with detailed descriptions, dialogues, and internal reflections, enhancing the atmosphere of horror and hopelessness. "Let's go." James whispers, his hands in a dream, bruises on my skin, madness in Mark's eyes. I thought I could endure this, keep everything under control until Mark completely broke down. But I was wrong. The last night with him showed that there was no limit to the nightmare that I myself had created. And now, when he was taken away, I was left alone with a house, with silence, and with a voice that does not go away. It all started last night. Mark was worse than ever. After that night when he screamed in his sleep, blaming James, he barely spoke to me. He sat in the living room, staring into space, muttering something incomprehensible, sometimes flinching, as if he heard footsteps. I tried to get him to eat, to sleep, but he waved me away. His hands were shaking, and his eyes were red, as if he had not slept. I knew he was on the verge, but I didn't expect it to be so scary. I was making dinner, just soup to keep me busy, when I heard noises coming from the bedroom. At first it was a knock, then a voice loud, sharp, not like Mark. I threw the spoon and ran upstairs. The bedroom door was open, and I saw him. He was standing in the middle of the room, naked to the waist, with scissors in his hands. His chest was covered in blood, long scratches stretched from his neck to his stomach, as if he was trying to rip something out of himself. "Mark!" I shouted, rushing towards him. "What are you doing?" He turned to me, and I recoiled. His eyes were wild, his pupils huge, like black holes. "He's inside me," he yelled, his voice hoarse and torn. "James, he's here. I feel it." I tried to grab the scissors, but he pushed me away, harder than I expected, and I fell onto the bed. He began to tear the skin on his chest, his nails biting into the flesh. "He's talking to me," he shouted. "He wants to go out. I have to let him out. Mark, stop." I begged, standing up, but he didn't listen. He threw the scissors and began beating himself in the chest and head with his fists, as if he was trying to knock something out from within. Scout barked below, his howl mixed with Mark's screams, and I realized that I couldn't cope on my own. I ran out into the corridor, grabbed the phone, dialed 911. "Help, please," I screamed when the operator answered. "My husband. He's gone crazy. He cuts himself. Come soon." They told me to wait, and I went back to the bedroom. Mark was now on the floor, curled up, wrapping his arms around himself. He kept shouting, "James, go away. Leave me alone." His voice broke and became hoarse, but he didn't stop. I stood in the doorway, paralyzed, until I heard the sirens. The ambulance arrived 10 minutes later. 2 orderlies in white coats burst into the house, followed by a policeman with a flashlight. I pointed to the bedroom, and they rushed there. Mark resisted, screaming when they tried to restrain him. He's inside me, he screamed, struggling. You don't understand. James is alive. The orderlies grabbed him and put him in a straitjacket, despite his protests. The policeman turned to me. Ma'am, what happened? He asked, looking at me with suspicion. He's not himself, I said, trembling. Nightmares, nonsense. He thinks he's talking to my ex-husband. Is he dangerous? The cop asked, writing something down on a notepad. I don't know, I whispered. They took him away. I stood at the window, watched as Mark was pushed into the ambulance, as his screams were drowned out by the howl of the siren. He looked at the house at me, and I saw his lips. He was saying something, but I didn't hear. Then the car drove away, and there was silence. Scout came up to me, nuzzled my hand, and I sank to the floor, hugging him. Mark left. He was taken away, and I was left alone. In the morning, I called the hospital. I was told that he was in a psychiatric ward under observation. Acute psychosis, they said. Strong hallucinations, aggression, were keeping him sedated. I asked if I could see him, but they said to wait a couple of days. I hung up and sat in the kitchen, looking at the empty chair where he usually drank coffee. It's over, I thought. Mark is broken, but I'm free. There are no more his screams, his crazy eyes, his words about James. I can breathe. The day passed quietly. I cleaned the bedroom. Scout followed me like a shadow, and I was glad of his company. By evening, I felt relief for the first time in weeks. Maybe this was the end. Maybe everything that tormented us went away with Mark. I went to bed early, turned off the light, and closed my eyes. The silence was soft, soothing. I fell asleep without dreams. But at night it returned. I woke up from a loud, sharp slam of a door somewhere below. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. Scout growled, looking at the bedroom door. I got up, turned on the light, and went downstairs. The door to the living room was open wide open, although I definitely closed it before going to bed. I walked up and looked inside. No one, only the cold wind from the open window, which I did not touch. Scout, come to me, I called, but he didn't move, he just whined. I closed the window, returned to the stairs, and then I heard it a whisper, low, familiar, right next to my ear. You're next, he said. James. His voice, cold as ice, crashed into me, and I gasped and turned around. No one. Only the darkness of the corridor and Scout, who backed away with his tail between his legs. Stop it, I whispered, but the whisper was repeated, louder, closer. You're next. I ran into the bedroom, slammed the door, and pressed my back against it. Silence. Then another slam, the kitchen door, then the living room, one after the other, as if someone was walking around the house, opening them. I grabbed the phone, but what could I say? What is my dead husband saying to me? Why is he here after Mark was taken? They'll think I'm crazy like him. I sat on the bed, hugging my knees, until morning came. The doors stopped slamming, but the whisper remained in my head, you're next. Mark left, but it wasn't over. James is still here. He is not inside Mark, as he shouted. He's in this house, with me, and I realized that I was wrong in thinking that his leaving would solve everything. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. In the morning, I looked in the mirror pale, with bruises under my eyes, with new marks on my wrists, where he touched me in my sleep. I'm alone. But not really. He's here, and he waits. You're next, it sounds in my head, and I know that he's not lying. They took Mark, but I stayed, and now it's my turn. Mark was taken away, and I was left alone in this house, with slamming doors, whispers in my ear, and the words, you're next, which sound in my head like a sentence. I thought I could ride it out, wait it out, until everything died down, until James' voice faded into silence. But he doesn't leave. It gets louder, closer, and I begin to understand that this is not just my conscience or madness. It's something more, something I can't control. And yesterday I found out why. After that night of doors slamming and James's whispers echoing in my ears, I couldn't sit still any longer. I had to understand what was happening. Mark screamed that James was alive, that he was inside him, but I knew the truth. I killed him, saw him die. His body was buried, I was at the funeral, standing at the grave, pretending to be a grieving widow. But now I doubt it. What if something went wrong? What if he really didn't leave? I decided to check. This morning, I called the funeral home that took care of James. The woman on the other end of the line was polite, but wary. "Mrs. Davis," she asked when I identified myself. "How can I help?" "I want to know about my husband's funeral," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "James Davis. He died 3 months ago. Did everything go okay?" She fell silent. I heard the rustling of papers. Then her voice became quieter. "Just a minute, I'll check." I waited, clutching the phone, until she returned. "Yes, here are the notes. James Davis, buried March 18th. But there is something strange." "What?" I asked, feeling a chill running down my spine. "The pathologist's report indicates that the gunshot wound in the chest, it has not healed, even after embalming. This is unusual. Usually the tissues stabilize, but here, it's as if it was left open." I froze. "Open? What do you mean?" "Well," she coughed, clearly awkward, "it's not a medical term, but in the notes there is a note from the employee. The wound looks fresh. We didn't attach any importance to it, we just closed the coffin and that's it. But it's strange, yes." I thanked her, hung up and sat staring into space. Fresh wound. Unhealing. I remembered that night, the shot, the blood, his body on the floor. I thought it was all over, that he had left. But what if not? What if his soul did not find peace? I'm not religious, but I've heard stories about the restless, about those who remain if their death was wrong, violent, if something is keeping them here. And I knew it was me. I killed him. I left him with this wound, this pain, and now he's back. In the afternoon, I went to the library. I needed more information. I took books about ghosts, about souls, about what happens after death. One of them, old, with a tattered binding, spoke of the rest. If a body is buried with an unhealed wound, the soul may remain tied to this world, unable to leave until it finds peace. I read, and every word sank into me like an accusation. James didn't leave. His wound, my bullet, keeps him here, and he came for me. At night, the whispering returned. I was lying in bed, Scout at my feet, when I heard him, "You're next," right by my ear, cold and clear. I turned on the light, but it didn't go away, it just got louder. "You were wrong. You're next." I covered my ears with my hands, but the voice was inside me, in my head, in my bones. It was him, restless, and he won't leave until he takes me. I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed to do something. I decided to confess. Not a priest, I haven't gone to church since childhood, but at least someone. I had to tell the truth, let it out, so maybe he would go away. This morning I called my sister, Kate. She always suspected something and asked questions that I avoided. If anyone will understand, it will be her. She arrived an hour later and entered the house with a gloomy face. "Lauren, you look like a ghost," she said, setting her bag on the table. "What's happened?" "I need to talk," I said, sitting down opposite him. My hands were shaking. I clenched them into fists. "It's about James." She frowned. "About James? You said he died from a robbery." "It's not true," I whispered, and the words came out like water from a broken dam. "I killed him, Kate. I shot him." Her eyes widened, and she recoiled. "What did you say? Are you crazy?" "It was him or me," I continued, without looking at her. "He wanted to get a divorce, leave me with nothing, and destroy Mark." I lost control. She took the gun from his office and shot. Then she made it look like it was a robbery. The police believed it. But he didn't leave, Kate. He's here. I hear him, I see him. He says I'm next. She was silent, looking at me as if I were a stranger. Then she said quietly, "Lauren, are you serious? Is it a joke?" Kate stood up, walked around the kitchen, then looked at me. "Do you understand what you are saying? You confessed to murder. Maybe you should go see a doctor. This is all nonsense." She left an hour later, promising not to tell anyone, but I saw that she didn't believe me and thought I was crazy. I was left alone, sitting in the kitchen, looking at an empty chair. Confession didn't help. I thought the truth would ease the weight, but it only pressed harder. At night I went to bed, hoping for silence, but he returned. The bedroom door slammed, Scout growled, and I heard him, louder than before, right in my ear. "You're next." I screamed and turned on the light, but he didn't leave. The whisper became a scream, an echo in my head. "You were wrong. You're next." I fell to my knees, covered my ears, but he was inside me. Confession didn't work. He is restless, and he will not forgive. His wound is my fault. His soul is my burden. And I know he's not lying. I'm next. Confessing to my sister did not bring relief. I thought that the truth, bursting out of me like blood from a wound, would cleanse me, give me a chance at peace. But she only made everything worse. James's whispers became louder, his presence heavier, and the words, "You're next," now sound less like a threat and more like a promise. I learned that his body was buried with an unhealed wound, that his soul was restless, and this knowledge broke the last wall between me and fear. He is here, in this house, with me, and I can no longer run. I have to face him, beg him. Maybe he'll forgive me, maybe he'll leave. Last night, I decided to try it. I couldn't stand it anymore, slamming doors, whispers in my ear, bruises that appear every morning. Mark was taken away, he broke down, and I was left alone, but that didn't stop James. He didn't leave with it. He stayed for me. I knew that it was my fault, his death, his pain, his restless soul. If I want to live, I must ask for forgiveness, even if he doesn't give it to me. I waited until midnight. The house was quiet, except for Scout whining downstairs, not daring to go up to the bedroom. I was sitting on the bed, the lights were off, only weak moonlight was breaking through the curtains. I clenched my hands, feeling my fingers tremble, and spoke into the darkness. "James," I said quietly, my voice trembling. "I know you're here. I hear you. I feel you. Please listen to me." Silence. Only my breathing, fast and uneven. I continued, the words coming out like a prayer. "I didn't want this. That night, I lost control. You said that you would leave me with nothing, that you would destroy Mark. I was scared. I didn't think the shot would be the end. I just wanted to stop you. I'm sorry, James. Please forgive me." I fell silent, listening. Nothing. Only the wind outside the window and the faint creaking of the floorboards. I closed my eyes, hoping he heard my words get through to him. Maybe that's all it takes, sincere repentance, for him to leave, for his soul to find peace. But then I felt it, a cold, sharp, like a blade, ran across the room. The bedroom door slammed so hard that the glass shook, and Scout below began to bark, desperately, scared. I opened my eyes, and he was there. Not a shadow, not a vague image in the mirror, but James. He stood at the foot of the bed, tall, pale, wearing the same shirt he had worn that night, with a dark stain of blood on his chest. His eyes, the same ones that looked at me with pain and anger, were now empty, but full of something dark, something that I could not name. I gasped, crawled to the headboard, clutching the blanket. "James," I whispered, "please." He tilted his head as if listening, but his lips did not move. Then I heard his voice, not from his mouth, but from the air, from the walls, from inside me. "Forgiveness," he said, and there was mockery in his tone, cold and cruel. "You killed me. Now it's your turn." The words hit me like a shot. I shook my head, tears running down my cheeks. "No, James, I didn't want to. It was a mistake. I beg you, forgive me. Give me a chance." He stepped closer. Although I didn't see his legs move, he just ended up at the edge of the bed. His shadow lay over me, cold and heavy. "You took my life," he said, and his voice became louder, sharper. "You took my house, my friend, and now you're asking for forgiveness? I know I'm guilty," I shouted, my voice breaking. "I live with this every day. I see you in my dreams, I hear you, I feel your hands. I didn't mean this, James. Please let me go." His face didn't change, but the air around him became thicker, as if he was sucking the heat out of the room. "You don't know what pain is," he said. "You don't know what it means to be restless. I'll show you." I screamed when I felt it, cold fingers, invisible but real, squeezing my wrist. I rushed, but they held me tightly, pulling me down towards him. No, I shouted. James, stop. I'll do anything. Tell me what to do to make you leave. He leaned closer, and I saw the wound on his chest open, fresh, as if a bullet had just entered him. I broke free, fell out of bed, and hit the floor. He disappeared, he simply disappeared into the darkness, but his voice remained, echoing in his head. Now it's your turn. I lay there, panting, until Scout burst into the room, barking and whining. I hugged him, pressed myself against his warm fur, but James' coldness was still inside me. In the morning, I couldn't get up. The bruises on his wrist were darker than before, like rope burns. I looked at them in the mirror, and the words, "You killed me," were spinning in my head. He won't forgive. He wants revenge. I killed him, and now he will take me. But I couldn't give up. I had to fight, find a way to stop him. In the afternoon, I went to church. I hadn't been there for years, but I had nowhere else to go. The small chapel in the center of the city was empty. Only an old woman was removing the candles from the altar. I sat on the bench, looking at the crucifix, and whispered, "Forgive me. I don't know how to fix this. Help me." The old woman looked at me and came closer. "You look lost, honey," she said softly. "I did something terrible," I whispered, "and now he won't leave me." "Who?" she asked, sitting down next to him. "My husband," I said. I killed him." And he returned. She didn't flinch, she just sighed. "Sometimes souls find no peace," she said. "If he's restless, you need more than prayer. We need to let him go." "How?" I asked, tears flowing again. "He doesn't forgive me." "Then you need to forgive yourself," she said, "or he'll take you with him." I left the church, her words ringing in my head, but I knew that I could not forgive myself. How can I forgive what I did? I returned home and night came again. I was sitting in the living room, the light was on, Scout was nearby, when I heard it not a whisper, but a voice, loud, clear, from the air. "Forgiveness, you killed me. Now it's your turn." The door slammed, the lamp flickered, and I felt him cold hands on my neck, squeezing, pulling. I screamed, but he didn't let go. "James, please," I begged. "I don't want to die." "You're already dead," he said, and the light went out. I fell to the floor, gasping, and realized that he was right. This is not forgiveness. This is revenge. And my turn came. I knew he wouldn't leave. After that night, when James came to me, when his cold hands squeezed my neck and his voice said, "You killed me. Now it's your turn," I realized that there would be no forgiveness. He didn't want my repentance, my tears, my pleas. He wanted revenge, and I felt that the end was near. But I didn't expect that he would take me like this in the fire, in the ruins of this house that I took from him. It all ended last night, and I saw him for the last time. The day started quietly, too quietly. After that meeting with James, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, the lights on, Scout at my feet, shaking and whining. I couldn't fight anymore. His words, "You're already dead," slammed into me like the bullet I fired at him. I killed him, and now he will kill me. It was inevitable. But I still clung to life, to this house, to the illusion that I could survive. I was stupid. By evening, I decided to leave. I packed my bag, a couple of things, documents, Scout's leash. I didn't know where I would go to my sister, to a motel, just away from here, but I couldn't stay. James was everywhere, in the slamming doors, in the whispers, in the bruises on my skin. I had to run. I was already standing at the front door when I smelled a smell faint, acrid, like burnt plastic. I turned around and my heart sank. Smoke. A thin gray stream rose from the kitchen. "Scout, come to me," I shouted, rushing there. The dog ran after me, barking. In the kitchen, the stove was turned off, but smoke was coming from somewhere below, from under the floor, from the cracks in the wooden boards. I opened the cabinet under the sink, and there, among the old rags and cleaning products, a spark flashed. The fire, small but alive, licked the tree, growing quickly. "No, no, no!" I screamed, grabbing a towel to put it out. But the flames flared up stronger and spread to the curtains and walls. I coughed, the smoke clogged my lungs, my eyes watered. This was impossible, the fire could not start on its own. But I knew who did it. James. I ran to the phone in the living room and dialed 911. Fire, I shouted when the operator answered. My house is on fire. Come soon. 142 Oak Street. Stay on the line, the voice said, but I hung up, grabbed Scout by the collar, and rushed to the door. It didn't open. I pulled the handle and hit the wood, but the lock wouldn't budge. The fire was already roaring behind him. Smoke was filling the room. The heat was burning his back. Open up, damn it, I screamed, but the door held, as if someone had locked it from the outside. I turned around. The kitchen was on fire. The flames were rising to the ceiling. The crackling of wood drowned out Scout's barking. I ran to the window in the living room and hit the glass with a chair. It cracked but didn't break. I hit again and again until the glass gave way and the cold night air rushed inside. Scout, run, I shouted, helping him get out. He jumped outside, disappeared into the darkness of the garden, and I was already climbing after him when I heard it, a whisper, louder than fire, clearer than a crackling sound. You won't leave. I froze, one foot on the windowsill. The cold gripped me despite the heat behind me. I turned around and he was there. James. He stood in the middle of the living room, in the center of the fire, but the flames did not touch him. James, I whispered, my voice shaking. Please, let me go. He stepped closer, the fire flaring up around him, but his eyes were cold, empty. You killed me, he said, and the voice was not a whisper, but a scream that drowned out everything. You took everything. Now it's my turn. No, I shouted, trying to get out, but something grabbed me. Invisible hands, strong, cold, pulled me back into the house. I clung to the frame, my nails broke on the wood, but they were stronger. The fire was already licking the walls of the living room. The ceiling was cracking. The smoke was choking me. James, I beg you, I screamed, tears flowing down my face, mixing with soot. I'm sorry, I didn't want to. He came closer, his smile growing wider, almost crazed. It's too late, he said, and I saw the fire spread to the sofa, to the curtains, to everything that Mark and I had brought into this house. You are mine now. I screamed as the ceiling began to collapse. The beam fell with a crash, cutting off the path to the window. I fell to the floor, coughing, gasping, the heat burning my skin. James stood above me, unharmed, his figure standing out against the fire. He looked down at me, and there was something satisfied in his smile, as if he had been waiting for this moment since the night I pulled the trigger. Why? I wheezed, trying to crawl away. Why is that? You know why, he said, leaning closer. His face was clear, despite the smoke. His eyes burned not with fire, but with something dark, eternal. You killed me. Now you will die here with me. I heard a crash as another beam collapsed, right behind it, and the fire roared like a beast. The walls shook, the house groaned, as if it was dying along with me. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't obey me. My lungs were burning, smoke filled everything. James extended his hand, not to help, but to hold. His fingers touched my face, cold as death, and I screamed for the last time. No, burst out from me, but the sound was drowned in the roar. The wall behind him collapsed, a huge piece of plaster and wood falling on top of me. I raised my hands in an attempt to defend myself, but it was no use. James looked at me, smiled, and in his eyes I saw the end, not just mine, but ours, bound that night, that bullet. The last thing I saw was him, standing in the fire, smiling as the walls fell. The beam hit me, the pain flashed and went out. The smoke took my breath away. The house was collapsing, burying me underneath it, and I knew that this was his revenge. Not forgiveness. Never forgive. He picked me up as promised. And in the darkness, before everything disappeared, I heard his voice for the last time. Now we're even. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.